Well, good afternoon, Maverick traders. It's currency recap time. Joe with you here. It's the 22nd of May, which means it's got to be a Thursday. You guys know how this works. I'm going to take a look at some of the news that came out today, see if we can break these markets down technically, and I've got some trades, so I'll share them with you.
All trades and analysis in this video are intended for professional traders only. This content does not constitute financial advice and is for educational purposes. This video is being released after a short delay due to Compliance Department review. Maverick members receive this content immediately as part of their daily trading resources. If you're ready to level up, consider joining Maverick Currencies. Our traders trade firm capital and keep 70 to 80% of profits. You bring the skill, we provide the backing. Let's get into today's market recap and see how the pros are trading the currency markets.
Moving into our market analysis, well, let's just jump straight into the news of the day. U.S. markets closed flat on today's session following a strong bearish move yesterday. I did the equity session, folks, and it was a pretty good move to the downside. We haven't seen something that big in a while. Dow down 1.9% and the others as well. However, today we were a little bit higher, maybe kind of a relief bounce, but towards the close, looked like we kind of pushed towards the to the downside there to close flat. So we'll take a look at it here in a second on the charts. Now, the U.S. Some economic data came out today I thought was pretty interesting. So we saw some stability, more stability than weakness in the manufacturing and the PMI number. They were both up. Now, not up to a substantial level where it shows growth and expansion, but at least stability. And then the unemployment claims were actually a little bit lighter than expected. What I thought was very interesting was today's currency action is it was kind of all over the place. The yen up slightly, the dollar up a little bit, right? 0.31%. Franc, the euro slightly down, but the pound and the CAD were the two biggest winners. And you could see that the Kiwi was the biggest losers. It was kind of all over the place, but there's some specific announcements out there that could actually hinder or help that I think might be a little bit more impactful for today's action. Moving on to what the S&P did, once again, 0.04%. It was actually up at a little bit there, but then towards the close, it actually turned down and closed a little slightly lower. World index as well. Crypto just kind of going gangbusters still. Whenever there's some sort of risk on move, it seems to be more in crypto than I've seen in some of the other currencies. Crypto seems to be kind of that leader there. Gold, a little bit of a drop, in oil as well. So here's our crypto moves. You can see as well, they're always pushing higher, always moving. They're either way higher, way down. But the overall motion on these things, daily-wise, is just pretty strong. So this is where we're at when it comes to the outlook. I didn't change much, and you'll see it's because we didn't really do much. We had that move to the downside, and today just kind of a stalled out. So I'm going to keep it at a +2 because it is above the moving averages there, and it looks like we're above support level still. So let's just jump straight into the chart. Now, even though we did close off of our highs, you can see that we were at this point here, but we came back and actually closed pretty much flat on the session, right at basically where we opened yesterday. Yesterday's candle was pretty big, right? We could see it was associated with some pretty good volume, but it is well within a range that I'm comfortable with, keeping it kind of a glass half full area. It's this 5,700 on the S&P that even if it came back and retested that area, it could still keep that bullish move. I'm looking for what's referred to as an open gap pattern, seeing if it can sustain itself right around that 5,800. Maybe test itself off of that, move sideways. Either way, it's going to keep my outlook of that +2. I don't see anything really changing until we really kind of fall apart and threaten some of those levels. So I really can't change my outlook on the overall markets themselves right now. Let's get into our economic data and a couple points of interest. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of reactions to some of these numbers, but you can see the median CPI, the trim CPI, a little bit showing a little bit, it's getting hot. The Great British Pound here came out a little bit hot. Now, going down to the U.S. side of things, well, here it is. So we've got that unemployment claims. It wasn't massively lower, but it was slightly lower. But these are pretty good bumps up here on the services and manufacturing PMI. I mean, is it a flash in the pan? I don't know. We'll see. The expectations for this to get weaker, and it's kind of hanging in there. It's not really blowing up or anything, but it's just showing a little bit more stability, which is, I don't know, less ominous than expected. Now, we did have the Bank of Canada come out and make an announcement, and I think this might have a little bit to do with the surge I saw in the CAD. The BOC said that they're actually looking to work things out and see what's on the table. How can we come to some sort of agreement when it comes to some of these tariffs? And I think it really kind of pushed things higher. I'm not sure if that has anything to do with it, but the Canadian dollar actually had a pretty good run towards the end of the day. Now, tomorrow we will get the Great British Pound, the retail sales out of there, and we got retail sales out of Canada. So we'll see if those have any sort of impact. But what I've seen as late is pretty sporadic and pretty reactionary. So let's just go ahead take a look at some of the currency analysis here and see some of the volatility changes over the last day. So here is the yen. Remember, the yen was up a little bit, but it's been on a pretty good move recently, at least velocity-wise. You take a look at all of these currencies on the daily charts, and I think Ankit did that yesterday. They're pretty much flat. They push-pull. They really aren't going anywhere. Velocity-wise, they show a little bit more tradability, but they're not very... They don't stay there for very long. So I did like the yen. I like how the RSI is kind of staying flat here above that 50. A little bit of that 45-degree slant moving higher, slightly breaking above highs, but setting higher lows. So it's kind of on a pullback right now. I didn't really want to give it too much, but I do want to give it its due, meaning +1. You guys could argue a +2 on this, but a +1 for now, showing that it's kind of hanging in there. Let's get over to the dollar. Now, the dollar itself, big move today, right? It was one of the stronger ones. However, it doesn't look too great on a daily chart. This is almost a bear rally. So we've got a move downwards here on the moving average. I've got an RSI. It did climb back up, but it's stalling out at that 50. And it looks like this could be pivoting. A little bit of extension here. If this can confirm, this could be a bear rally. So I wanted to keep it negative, but I didn't want to get too aggressively negative with it. This is going to be a -1. Now, if this can roll over, it'd be nice to see it get weaker and pair it with something a little bit stronger. And there's a few out there that are pretty decent. So let's move over to the franc next. The franc I kept flat, and I do like how it did break above resistance here on Tuesday, but it did set a little bit of a lower low Wednesday going into today, and it's moving slightly lower here. If it could sustain itself at this level, the RSI hasn't really broken below that 50. It is weaker. We get a flip on the SAR. I imagine it could try to climb itself back. So I wanted to make sure I didn't really punish it for rolling over, but I'm not going to give it too much because I need to see it at least break above a couple resistance areas. So I kept it as a 0 for now. The euro, more cut and dry when it comes to 0. The RSI is completely at that 50 mark. We did get a little bit of a push up here in the moving average. I do like slightly higher highs, but it's got that kind of a descending triangle pattern going on recently. But I mean, this is shorter term, so we can see. I mean, if this breaks, we could see a little bit more weakness, but it can easily consolidate or turn back up. I don't really like it. It's not one of my favorites because these patterns can take a little while to develop. So I just kept it kind of at a 0 for now. The pound, on the other hand, was interesting. I knew that the CAD was probably going to move higher just based on maybe some announcements when it comes to tariffs. That's just kind of what we've been seeing lately. But this is a pretty good move here. A little bit of a flip towards the end of today. It did break out of resistance. I put it at a +2 because it might consolidate or pull back. We've seen that happen over the last few days. Good RSI, really strong. The moving average is kind of sideways, but this thing is on a pretty good move. Definitely a currency to pair when it comes to, if you need a stronger one, it'd be good. Let's get to the CAD. The CAD had, I think, the most substantial move, and the reason being is because it was already not looking too good, kind of a 0, flattening. The RSI just really turned higher. It actually moved the moving average, this last little surge that it had here today. So I think that had something to do with maybe the idea of, hey, let's work something out with tariffs and try to figure things out. And that might have just kind of made things move higher. I don't know how long it's going to go. And also the overall pattern isn't my favorite when it comes to sustainable strength. But overall, it was a pretty good move to the upside. Here is the Aussie. The Aussie was slightly lower, and it is continuing kind of this descending pattern. Maybe this risk off move. So it could continue. This descending triangle pattern could break this level here. The moving average, or excuse me, the RSI is below 50, but sideways. Moving average is showing that it's weakening. It could be something to use if we continue to see a little bit more stability in the risk off currency. You can see the Kiwi is pretty much the same idea. It's just a little bit more aggressive today, down quite a bit. But it still has to break that floor. So just be patient with it when it comes to establishing where you want to enter it. But both the Aussie and the Kiwi are showing some weakness as of late. So we'll see if that can continue. Let's move over to the cryptocurrencies. Easy to see, another surge. It just comes out, flatlining for a little bit into Wednesday, getting to Thursday, and boom, it shoots up and seems to base. We're actually at another level here when it comes to Bitcoin itself. We're over the 110. It's a psychological deal. But if you guys just want to play this to watch it kind of high base, consolidate, set a pattern, you've got your stop entry, your targets, yes, you can continue to play this. Just be mindful of the extension on this and how quickly these things can change. Here is cash. The same idea. I don't like this chart as much as I like Bitcoin because it feels a little overextended. You could see a pretty good surge here. This is a resistance point where it got to very quickly, but it is still overall performing to the upside. I've got them both at +2, by the way. Here is Ethereum. Ethereum I kept a little bit less, more of a +1, because it did get up to this area. It started to pull back. It might consolidate. Let's go over to Litecoin, which I thought was flat. Litecoin was actually kind of in a very slow downtrend. The RSI did get above the 50 and it's flattening, so it is showing some strength. You could call this a strong zero, but I kept it there. I don't think it's anything that I would want to look at, especially considering the other ones. So here's the velocity score for today, and it moved quite a bit, and it moved in all sorts of different directions. I think a lot had to do with some of the announcements out of Canada. The pound showing some strength, the Kiwi dropping really, really far, the U.S. stability and some of those economic numbers, but it really didn't do much to the overall chart. So I'm seeing a lot of reaction still, which does make this pretty difficult to trade on a day-to-day basis. It's easier probably to take a look on the longer term right now than it is shorter. With that being said, folks, we can go out and at least take a look at some possible trades. The first and most obvious would be the pound Kiwi, which I really do like. I like how it's emerged. It's pushed above this, a nice consolidation area that it's moving higher. I imagine it might consolidate or pull back a little bit. So if you just make sure that you put your stop, your entry, and your target accordingly, you could probably let this float a little bit higher. The only other one that I would look at would be the pound Aussie, and it does show pretty much the same pattern. This has a little bit more of an ascending triangle pattern to it, but it's just the drop in the Kiwi that I think is really given an advantage to the pound in that situation. This one might have to be a little tighter, where I think the Kiwi could have a little bit more flexibility. But overall, folks, if you're apt to take anything away from today, I just like the resilience and the consistency of the pound. And that's basically all I got. Trades do change day to day. Selective action today based on news. I'm seeing a lot of that. The economic reports out of the U.S. I thought would have more impact, but they really didn't. The U.S. seemed to give up the majority of some of the bounce that I had today towards the end of the day. But crypto continues higher. It seems to just any sort of light at the end of any tunnel. Crypto seems to kind of surge. Outside of that, it's just a lot of back and forth. So play relative strength and weakness as you guys see fit and proper position sizing as always. All right, guys, thanks for joining me. And we'll talk to you next time. Bye, everybody.